we had this discussion during FarCon where you told me about this idea, and at the time I thought it was very impressive, very innovative. So I'm very glad to see this is finally going to launch. I know that you have this free Kevin campaign, which we're going to talk about in a second, that is
Yeah.
already live and I have
Yeah.
signed, and I see some other people like Jesse from Base that have also signed. So fantastic, congrats! But let's start from the beginning. So how does Nilly work, and how did you come up with this idea in the first place?
Yeah. Let me start. I mean, there's kind of a theory and like crypto primitive component to Nilly, and there's also just kind of like what can people do with
Yep.
it right now that meets a need. I'm going to start with the sort of like what can you actually do with it and
Sure.
what problem does it solve. The basic thing that we want to enable is to kind of take some of the amazing things that smart contracts can do and make that more available for normal people to do things that they can't do currently in their everyday life. So the core action that we're interested in at Nilly is when many people want to get someone to do something, whether that's a celebrity or an organization or a creator or a politician, when you have a group of people that want to not just be heard, but actually influence someone to do something that means something to them, Nilly's really a tool for people to coordinate around that and to send that signal in the strongest way to create like a win-win deal with that person. So just to give an example of our go-to-market case, fan bases care a lot about their team. They want to get this player, they want to keep that player. There's lots of ways that they wish they could have an influence, but they currently can't really do anything more than just like cheer a lot louder at the game or like, some tweets of a player who they like or want to keep. And so we're starting in college sports where fan bases are able to use Nilly to fund a smart contract offer to a player. And they do that just by, they don't have to know the player. They can target that player just through their existing social handles. So let's say it's a coach like Deion Sanders is a campaign we're working on. He's a coach of Colorado. The fans don't personally know him, but they're afraid that he's having a great season. They're afraid he's going to leave and go to another team because they don't have as much money, or that other team might have more prestige. So how can you show him love and like make an offer as a fan base if you really want to keep him? So on Nilly, you can create a social contract for Deion Sanders by targeting his Twitter handle. And we pre-generate a wallet that then all the fans who contribute to this, whether they're boosters or everyday fans, whatever, they're funding they're funding a wallet that's pre-generated for Deion Sanders and can only be opened by him OAuthing with that address. So, it's the basic condition is like, if Deion Sanders comes back and is the coach next year, then he unlocks this money that we funded for him. But if he doesn't come back, then we all automatically get our money back from this offer that we made. So this is like our very simple version of a group of people, in this case a fan base, wanting to influence what someone does that they're fans of, and then using Nilly to create the win-win offer for this person, conditional offer for the person, even though they don't know him. And so this kind of like a specific example of this sort of general, like with some people we describe this, you could sum it up as like, what if change.org petitions, what if they weren't just political? but were about like anything you wanted people to do?
Mm-hmm.
And what if they were on crypto rails? Like, what would we do differently when we're making a petition to try to influence somebody to do something? Um, so this is like kind of the core problem is how do many people pull an action out of one person, their hero or the celebrity or the creator. Right now, we think the economy is mostly working in that those influential individuals are mostly pushing the things that they think their fans want onto the fans. So it's more of a one-to-many relationship, and we're trying to think of how can we use smart contracts to facilitate many pulling actions and products out of one person.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, sorry, I thought you cut off. Um, I I think that there are a lot of things to unpack here. One of the things is you said that let's just use the example of Deion Sanders. He only he can open this vault. Um,
Yep.
where the fans have put the money. Right. Talk about how
Yep.
you authenticate that.
Yep. So we're using Privy. Like Privy lets you spin up an
Mm-hmm.
EOA, um, just using, I mean, it's like kind of like Magic Link or things that people are familiar with, where you can spin up an EOA address that's functional by just using like email or social handle or whatever form of authentication. And so we use Privy to pre-generate the EOA that's associated with the given handle that's been targeted. And then it just kind of works backwards in that the only share that's capable of unlocking that wallet, that EOA, is the OAuth process of that targeted handle, right? So only someone who owns or controls Deion Sanders' Twitter handle would actually be able to access that EOA that was built into the contract and where the funds are being placed.
Mm-hmm. So you are using, in this case specifically, you're using Twitter handle as a way to authenticate
Yeah,
that person.
exactly.
And are you doing this authentication yourself,
No,
or who is doing that?
it's automatic through Privy.
Uh
So we pre-generate the wallet address, and then they come in and take control of that account that exists by using the OAuth of Twitter as their kind of security share. So you could almost think of it as like it's kind of like MPC, uh, like a multi-party
yeah.
computation of a wallet. Like that's what Privy's using. But imagine that it's like it's like in this case for the pre-generated address, there's only one share. Like the only share that can compute and get that wallet and is the OAuth of that social handle,
Mm-hmm.
right? So not like because the person wasn't there to set a password and there's no like device share because they haven't used this is like the only share that exists. There are of course security risks in that, right? Like of course, like what happens if Deion Sanders' Twitter gets hacked, or what happens? Like
Like a
there's
Wise King situation happening.
yeah. Well, Dan would be a very safe target now. Although with Dan, because Dan's is like it's all like secured up now, right? But now, with Dan, he's an example of like the target when somebody has an ENS, you can just target that wallet instead of the social handle. This social handle element is really like it's this way of it's the magic, creating the magical experience for getting people who are not yet in crypto setting up like a bounty that like
Yep.
if you come in it's just sitting there for you, right? Like just imagine being Deion Sanders and there's like $1 million of a crypto portfolio that only you can go, you just go sign in and you just have it. That's going to be a really really fun and cool way to kind of get some influencers
100%.
into the crypto space.
Yes. So this is very exciting, and let's now talk about the process from the fans' perspective. So let's say I'm a fan of Colorado, and then I want him to come back next season. How do I put the money into the vault, assuming I don't have a wallet?
Yep. So yeah, we are. If you're not a crypto user, obviously, like the friction point here is going to be on
Mm-hmm.
ramping, right? So Privy really helps, and they're great. They're just shipping, like the team's amazing. We've loved working with them. Uh, the aspect of getting a wallet now, because they're doing these embedded wallets like you see on FriendTech.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yep.
Getting the wallet isn't that hard, right? So that doesn't have to be a friction point. Signing up for Nilly for people can feel just like signing up for anything else. You just have a wallet. You don't even need to know that you have a wallet in your account. You do have an EOA though, right? But the moment where there's necessary friction is, for our current structure and what we find to be like the sort of right legal path is that, if you want to fund one of these contracts, you need to get an Ethereum compatible asset, to be able to stake into these escrow
Mm-hmm.
contracts, right? It's a smart
Yep.
contract. So we have set up through Privy, we have a Stripe on ramp set up. That's what we found to be the easiest thing to use. If people have a Coinbase account, like that's a pretty easy way to do things without like having to do a KYC. But if you don't have any Coinbase, you don't have any, crypto at all. If you want to get money and put it on, you've either got to get somebody to send it to you, like, I don't know, maybe a rich uncle has crypto, or you are a rich cool uncle, or you have to on ramp with Stripe. So that's just like we've tried to reduce the complexity of crypto UX to people where they don't have to feel that. But this is one moment. It's like if you want to contribute, you do have to actually go through the friction of getting crypto, and there's just kind of no way around it for that piece,
Yep.
which I think is fine. Like what we hope is to create a vehicle where people want to get crypto because they want to do something with it, right? So like we're okay if out of 100% of people who are interested in the Deion Sanders social contract, maybe only 20% of them like love that contract enough that they're willing to on ramp on Stripe to do it. But we would be excited about creating that path and motivation even for 20%, right? Because then they're familiar. They can then tell their friends, hey, it's not that bad. Like you just do it once. It isn't that hard. It's pretty cool to use. Um, so we think of it that way, just kind of like get 10% of your evangelists at a time. I think the other thing that's important for our system is that funding is not the only way to participate in a campaign. Um, you can also just sign the social contract, right? So you just create an account and you sign it to say that you support it. And we let people auth in with Twitter and Instagram and like their familiar social handles. So you might see that like LeBron James loves Deion Sanders, like wants him
Mm-hmm.
to stay. If LeBron James signs, like you could see that it's him, right? He doesn't have to contribute. You could just see like LeBron James Twitter associated wallet signed
Yeah.
here. And this social proof also can be really exciting for people in terms of the campaign, having legs as a movement. Um, so we do create this, like, even though there is like a necessary high friction to the contribution element,
Mm-hmm.
um, then I don't see the way around that. We do have like a low friction action for people to get involved, and we're also creating some like status games of like, even if you don't contribute, the people who share the contract more and are responsible for people who come in and contribute with money or signatures, those people kind of get a higher status within that movement.
Mm-hmm.
So, people who are super fans but don't have the money to risk on this, or can or won't use crypto, they can still kind of get engaged through sharing and referring the contract to get like a higher rank and status within the movement.
Yeah, and I think this is similar to friend tech, in a way, but I
Mm-hmm.
would say this is more superior than that because it has.
You're setting a high bar, but yeah.
I think it has a real connection to off-chain events. Um, whether that is whether that is sports events or um, the free Kevin campaign that you're doing. It's basically gives you a real anchor. Uh,
Yep.
on which you can use all those tools. It's like social tokens plus previous wallet as a service, and plus this sort of, I wouldn't call it speculation, but it's like status game that
Mm-hmm.
you can only win if you put a bit of money, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is very interesting. I want to go to the question in the comments
Yeah.
from Lawson. Where do you see prediction betting markets, market that incentivizes people to do things without asking,
Hmm.
i.e., permissionless?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like whenever we describe the idea to somebody smart and crypto native, now I'm deriving that's what Lawson is. But they go to the same thought that this like sounds a lot like prediction markets. It's interesting. It's not I think the connection is fascinating. It's not really the way that we've thought about it. We think about like prediction markets, and I think Lawson's sort of already pointing to this in his question. Prediction markets like influence things without necessarily being conscious or intentional about influencing them. And the experience that we're trying to facilitate is like very much the conscious and intentional influencing of people. So it's not meant to be a prediction. It's meant to be a petition. Like, we want this to happen, and here's what we're doing to make it happen. And I think that's a bit different from predictions, which, as Lawson noted, are passive. Um, I think theoretically they might do a lot of this. They might have a lot of the same outcomes. So I'm not arguing against the theory,
Mm-hmm.
but we are focused and trying to facilitate people to be able to knowingly create movements that make things happen and make their voice heard and like let them affect the world as a group in ways that they don't always have like access or ability.
Mm-hmm. 100%. And this Deion Sanders example, that he does come back for next season. How
Yep.
are you going to determine that this event actually happened?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. So now you're getting into the Oracle
Yep.
problem, which we consider to be like a uh, a really really fun element and exciting design element of what we're working on. So in the Dion example specifically, um, you can use ESPN's API through Chainlink to, and in which case you'd be relying on like a Web2 service and like a Web3 provider reading that to see is he actually the coach of a game in 2024, right? So you could define something like relatively automated, although of course that still has like a centralized dependency. um, the way that we think about Oracle actually is like the design principle of being Oracle agnostic, and we actually call it jury agnostic because normal people
Mm-hmm.
don't know what an Oracle is. But just think, if you call an Oracle a
Yep.
jury, the thing that adjudicates a decision about what happened. Um, our design principle is to be jury agnostic, meaning that the whole point of these social contracts is to create a win-win deal that each side voluntarily participates in, right? So like if you think about it, like if your jury is really weak, right? Like it's like the who decides that Deion Sanders did it or not, and it's like some unknown Twitter account that you think might be a scam. a sole decider. Like that means that like Deion Sanders might not be very confident, and the contributors might not be very confident to get themselves involved in that, right? So in this case, the jury or the oracle isn't suitable for the action to actually for the contract to actually be appealing to both sides. But imagine that you say, okay, we're going to make it read ESPN, and then have like a contributor vote that needs to clear 50% to make this happen. Now Deion Sanders is going to look at that and like evaluate the risks. It's like, well, what if these people get me to do it and then they vote that I didn't? Like, do I want to trust that? And so maybe that's too heavy, right? So like as we go through all this, you
Mm-hmm.
can imagine that in different contracts, the jury mechanism that will be appropriate will be different, right? Different contracts, different contexts will have different mechanisms that will work. And so what we try to do is let the jury be a variable element that can be defined as part of the contract. So it's almost like an element of the contract that you negotiate or build in to make it like more attractive to whichever side you're wanting to do the contract. So just as an example, like
Mm-hmm.
when people are launching these initial contracts, like we're advising them and through work with them and sometimes even their targets or their target representation to figure out like what's going to be a jury here that can make sense in these early deals. So we're kind of taking a more active hand of like picking juries that aren't going to rug a contract, right? Because we want these early ones to work well. But in the future, I think that like the experimentation that people want to use about what oracles can work for what kinds of deals is something that we really want to leave up to the people who are creating the contracts.
I'm seeing a few comments from Lawson. One is, I believe the person who started a market on Augur said who the oracle was. So
Hmm.
yeah, I guess this is also related to what I wanted to ask, which is, so basically you're giving the creator of the campaign the ability to set certain parameters, right? Is it going to be 100% decided by the jury, or is going to be a combination of ESPN API plus the jury, or just
Yeah.
the API, right? So is
Yeah.
it like, okay,
And
um,
just and Bill, just a terminology thing is that we actually just think of the jury as like the deciding entity, and so a
got it,
jury could be one person. Like one person could be the jury that you define, or a multi-sig, or a vote, or like AI backed up by a vote, right? Like you can kind of define whatever kind of adjudication you want serving as that decider. Um, that's our design theory. Like our contract creation right now is not permissionless.
mm-hmm.
We're helping people create their original launch. We're helping people to launch their and design their original contracts ourselves. Like they launch it, they're responsible for it, like it's their thing. But like we're helping them to do that. Through that experimentation, we're going to learn what's the way to make this kind of progressively permissionless for people to launch any kind of contract that they want. And I think that question of like what people are going to be able to set and how is going to be practically determined, just depending on what stage we're in terms of the product. But the
Mm-hmm.
goal, like the goal that we're the theoretical goal that we're driving toward is like a being jury agnostic, meaning that can be defined by the contract creator in whatever way makes sense to them. Now, like
Got it.
this gets into a slight like an interesting future consideration, which is like how active is Nilly going to be in like trying to prevent fraudulent designs that trick people, a fraud, like a tricky jury or a tricky contract stipulation, if this becomes permissionless. And I think that's another tension that we're gonna that we will be excited to be in the position of navigating that tension, right? Because it means people are using these contracts and they're
Yep.
relevant, and but that is a tension of like, we want Nilly to be valuable to people because there are templates or expectations that they can understand. We also want it to be as permissionless as possible so that people can design the contracts freely that makes sense to them. And there will be tension between those 2 points of creating stability for the average user on the one hand and creating like freedom for the contract creator on the other. Um, but we're just going to be kind of, I think, constantly, figuring out the
Yep.
best way to handle that tension at each step of the product life.
100%. I mean, it's definitely going to be an iterative process because
Yeah.
there's so many variables here, right? It's impossible to design everything from the very start. Um, so the other thing that I want to talk about is the free cabin campaign that you have
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
now.
For
Yeah. So
the
do you
first
want to talk
social
about it?
contract. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we the our first social contracts, we wanted to experiment with um, the core mechanism is many people trying to get one person or entity to do something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like I talked about like our college sports use case, which we've been working toward for quite a while, and that's our kind of aim, go to market.
Yep.
But we want to do some crypto oriented stuff along the way because we can do that without solving, all of the embedded wallet issues, right? Because people already have crypto wallets and they're already familiar with this UX. So like just as an alpha product,
Sure.
we want to think about what what kind of petitions are many getting something out of one um, uh, actions would be interesting within the crypto space. And so we were talking, just talking to we've been user testing for a while, and one of the people who tested it was Nounish Prof. And
Mm-hmm.
when we were just sort of jamming and through the testing with her, there was a funny idea of like, what if we okay, so what could we get people to do, like what would be an interesting thing to get somebody to do that they may not want to do on the face of it. And she's a CCO maxi, like
Yeah.
obviously she's a Nounish Prof, right? So like I
And
also
she
love,
was a lawyer. She was IP
and
lawyer
she
before all of that.
and she before that was like on the dark side,
Yeah.
which I think that's why she's so excited about CCO, because she understands the implication of the other side, having practiced for like a
Mm-hmm.
decade as an IP lawyer. So
Yep.
like, I'm very also pro CCO. Like I'm like a big Toads maxi and like love the nouns community. And so we were just sort of jamming about it, and she was like, we were just thinking of like some of the most iconic and beloved crypto art that isn't CCO, and could we try to proposition it to become CCO? So the Free Kevin campaign is basically using a Nilly to try to see, can we create a win-win for Pixelmon to make Kevin public domain, and so to make the Kevin art,
Yep.
the famous meme from the Pixelmon drop to CCO. And so Nounish Prof created something called the Free Kevin DAO, which is sitting there and it's locked. It's a Nounish DAO. She used a Nouns builder to build it, and it's just sitting there. It's locked, and so it is also receiving like all the proceeds of an NFT that is being sold like for anybody who signs this movement. So like it has this like growing treasury of money, and then this sort of like a 10% allocation to Pixelmon's wallet. And the Nilly for this movement is to get Pixelmon to make Kevin CCO. If they sign the Nilly claiming that they will do that, then the governance tokens that will give them kind of a majority ability within this free Kevin DAO will automatically transfer to Pixelmon's wallet. So at a high level, you could think of it as like basically if Pixelmon says, yeah, we'll do CCO, then this automatic thing happens where they become the governors of this free Kevin nouns
Mm-hmm.
DAO. And what we would be hoping for as we build this movement up is that if other artists and interesting people within the crypto community are like, yeah, this would be sick if Kevin was public domain, Pixelmon could look at this and be like, okay, guys, like, do you think we're going to make more off Kevin by owning the IP 100%? Or do you think we're going to make more off Kevin by all these crypto OGs being excited to help us distribute the meme and getting 10% of those proceeds, right? So it's a kind of if the movement can get people behind it, then it would be a value proposition to them of, would you rather have 10% of everybody trying to distribute your meme or 100% of you doing it by yourself? And so it's really kind of like a very cool test. Like Nounish Prof like used these amazing nouns tools. So this is a very like kind of fun nounish thing. This contract can also, we launched it as a beta, just like kind of getting our product going, but it can sit there for as long as it needs to, right? Like if Nilly becomes interesting for other reasons, like this free Kevin, there's no urgency for it to succeed immediately. You know, it will just be a campaign that people can get in on. I think it's a super fun idea because I love Kevin. Like it was such a hilarious representation of how ridiculous it was. Just this living thing of how ridiculous the expectations versus the delivery of NFT teams during the bubble. And it was just so fun. And I think it's like, it's very crypto to turn like kind of your most embarrassing moment into this moment that you're all having so much fun with. So like, I got a huge like enjoyment out of it. And I still love seeing the Kevin meme. And it's like, how cool would it be if crypto like made that its own thing as a whole instead of it remaining, you know, part of a private entity? I think it's like a very fun, desirable, you know, thing to happen. Who knows how many other people feel that way, but like we had a lot of fun making it and making the logic, and people can sign that now. Like it's live. If you go to Nilly, it's our representative contract. We're going to be experimenting with some other crypto oriented, crypto community oriented contracts here, like in the next couple weeks, to add to the Kevin one. And we'll be there will be a contract marketplace where you can kind of scroll through and see if any of these are landing for you. Like right now, we just kind of drive you to one existing campaign, this Kevin one, but like we'll be launching a handful of them. So people can kind of look around for anything that's interesting and see like the variety that's possible within the platform.
Yeah. I want to be conscious of the time. Is it okay if we go 10 more minutes?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I'm good.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, because initially we said 40. So on the topic of, you know, product, you know, rollout and product roadmap, when do you think you're going to sort of announce the, I don't know if you can give us some alpha, but when do you think you're going to announce the main product, you know, related to college sports?
Yeah, I mean, we have to see how the fidelity of this initial product launch works, and it will be dependent on that. But the goal is within this fall, because this is like there's the college football season's heating up. Like a lot of our contacts are within college sports, like so that's what we've been aiming at. It's a space we know, so we really want to get out there and live during the college sports season. And so like this college sports season is basically ending in like around the end of the calendar year, you know, so we want to be able to get out there and have some momentum. People will remain interested in the things that can be done like right after the season ends. And then we'll be able to launch right into college basketball season from there, which is like really getting hot in like January through March. So we're kind of synchronized right now with our go-to-market focus in the college sports, which is really running like this fall and winter.
Fantastic. I'm really looking forward to that. I also want
too,
to spend some time talking about your backstory, if that's okay. I'm very, because you and I have some shared experience in industry called management consulting, although in different firms. Both start with the same letter. So I thought it would be cool to use the last maybe 5-6 minutes to talk about sort of, your backstory. What got you into crypto in the
Yeah.
first place? What did you work on before that? So
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah. So, I said undergrad, I was at UNC and Duke, and I studied economics and political science. So I was very interested in sort of the structure of, I mean, you can see this theme now still of like the structures of human coordination and like how we do things together. I think that's always been an interest. I uh, I went into management consulting like mostly because I didn't know what else to do when I graduated. It seemed it seemed like you would learn a lot, and it had a like it was appealing to be around a lot of other smart people that cleared this difficult selection process. So it's kind of like almost a way of like thinking of extending your college experience
Yeah.
of like finding another selective thing to be around fun, interesting, cool people. The work itself was not that interesting. I was like an Excel. I got into like I was like the Excel whiz. Like I just I didn't really have background in it, but I just kind of took to it and was kind
Background
of
in
like doing.
Excel. Trust me.
Yeah, no one needs a
Yeah.
background in Excel. I had done some computer programming in high school, so it was like kind of easy to pick up. And I got in like that on that side. So it's like it was very uninteresting. The cases, I like the people. A lot of my best friends are still from BCG, but like
Hmm.
I can't say that I learned very much content except that like the people in these big businesses were not that smart and impressive. And I don't mean that I don't mean that as an insult.
Yeah.
I just mean it as like they're not like some kind of they're not some kind of gods amongst human beings. They're just normal people. And I do think that that affected my interest and willingness to go into entrepreneurship in general, where it's like, okay, like as far as I can see, the most important thing is that you just do something, right? Like, and stick to it. And that can become something big. You don't have to be like, have the gene of being like a business, executive to succeed. So I do think it affected me in that way. It made me probably more confident to do entrepreneurship.
Hmm.
Um, I actually went the opposite direction. I went into academia like right
Wow.
after BCG,
Interesting.
and was studying like philosophy. I had ancient Greek philosophy specifically, like learned
Wow.
ancient Greek language and wrote
Nice.
about that. And I was getting started on a PhD, and I was like, I don't know if I want to publish for my career. I'm not that interested in writing to other academics. So I took a year off in New York, a gap year with where a bunch of my friends were, and just was like, yeah, this is the place that I want to be. Got into ed tech, did a couple startups, exited on one a few years ago, and had some capital and free time, and um, got into crypto mostly through like um, uh, investors, like some families that I worked with in education.
Hmm.
They were like early investors in Coinbase. They were venture capitalists, and so I learned about the appeal of crypto from like very, very smart, innovative people who were interested in crypto not just as a way to Ponzi, but like as a new way of kind of arranging technical and social primitives and coordinations. So I kind of got into the theory there, and I also like had some clients from China who were wanting to pay their invoices to my education business in
Hmm.
Bitcoin. This is like in 2018, 2019.
Hmm.
And I was just like, why, I was like, why are they wanting to pay in Bitcoin? Like they're like 100 millionaires, right? They have a huge amount of money. And I was just
Yeah.
like, oh, they can't get it out, right? Like, so this like exposed me to like the idea that like, just because you have wealth doesn't mean that that wealth is mobile. And I think when I realized that the Chinese government couldn't directly attack the Bitcoin network, I was like, wow, that's super interesting. Like, just, it's solving a problem and it's a very powerful technology.
Hmm.
So I got like really, I got definitely like nerd sniped about the idea of crypto from my experiences and just like people that I knew. And then I started building in Arweave ecosystem in around 2020. Um, and then I built some like social reputation stuff with my current co-founder in like 2021,
Hmm.
2022. Then got into Farcaster and started building Nilly and social contracts like this year. So I'd say I've been like really involved in crypto only for a few years, kind of intellectually interested for a little bit longer.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think I do think my like background in economics and political science and philosophy makes me very, very open to the fact that the way that things are arranged right now is not the only possible arrangement. And so
Yep.
when I see compelling alternatives, even if crypto doesn't change everything as like a total reset, which I'm not exactly even sure would be a good thing, it's like providing a competition to the current system. And by having another viable way of having your money or arranging your affairs, or in our case of doing legal contracts, like having those viable alternatives makes the existing way that is happening, they need to step up their game, to make sure that people are benefiting from that and not like opting out. So I think of crypto as like like a very healthy form of competition for the current, political and economic infrastructures that we have.
Yeah, and I can see, from the story that you just told, why you're the perfect person to work on Nilly, because it's not just a set of smart contracts, right? It's not just a technical challenge, and it's more like
Yeah,
almost like a political challenge, or
yeah,
social
yeah.
economic challenge.
Agreed.
And
Agreed.
I really would love to go on forever, because I think there's so many broader topics that we can talk about, but I don't want to take too much of your time.
No,
Maybe we
no,
can
no.
do
This
a
is
round
great, man.
two in the near future to talk
I
about
would
some,
love to.
yeah,
Yeah,
to talk about some of the more sort of metaphysical topics.
yeah, no, we had also like a great conversation about DAOs at FarCon.
Yeah,
And I think this would be a very fun, I mean, it's not exactly related to Nilly, but just the I think that conversation we were having about what DAOs are and what they're not and what they could be, I think was like a very interesting and important like direction for like understanding what we're meaning and what we could be meaning by that.
100%, and
But
then also how we sort of organize as human beings, right? I mean, we're always thinking about coordination problems, principal agent problems, and then how to allocate resources. Like, the DAOs is obviously just
yeah,
one end goal, one solution to that. But
exactly.
I think that there's so many sort of topics that we can discuss if we go on that route. And yeah, we'll definitely do another space, maybe in the next several weeks, and then to talk about those topics. And like, as you know, I am very interested in DAOs, on-chain communities, on-chain coordinations, and all of that. So very much looking forward to that.
Totally, dude. Abura is great. Like this has been awesome. Spaces are like such a missing element from our ecosystem, and like this is performing great. I love all the integrations that you have, and
Yeah,
I'm excited to see this grow and like be just fun conversation. Like just awesome to talk, but like also love the tech that you're building, and
absolutely.
it's
I
such a good
appreciate it.
idea.
I appreciate it. And once your product is officially live, we should definitely integrate that into the space.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
and then
Sign from Abura. Totally.
Yeah, yeah, because eventually, I mean, every Farcaster account is a wallet, right? So
Yeah.
technically, you can do anything that a wallet can do. So yeah,
Totally.
I mean, great. So this has
Yeah,
been,
we're using EAS
yeah,
now. We're doing our signing is really like an EAS attestation.
yeah,
That team's also super super cool. Um,
yeah,
but yeah,
and
maybe that would fit.
I should look into that. Ethereum as attestation service. Yeah,
Yeah,
I need to look into that. It's on my to-do list, but I have not.
the
Um,
team's awesome. I think they're building something super cool. We've loved like kind of integrating it so far.
Good. Fantastic. Again, really appreciate this conversation. I had so much fun.
Totally, dude.
I learned a lot about, not just the mechanics, but also the broader philosophy that we have behind nearly this product. So appreciate your time, and then I will see you on Farcaster.
Thanks, Bill. It was really, really fun conversation. You're a great interviewer, conversationalist. I like all the talks you're doing. You're just like straight to the point. You have great questions.
Appreciate
They're
it.
really, really high quality content. It's great stuff.
The most important thing is I talked to the great builder, with great project.
Well, dude, I was like, I'm sandwiched between Nounish Prof and 4156. Like, okay, yeah, that's awesome company to be keeping.
Cool.
All right, man.
Thanks again for
good
your
to talk,
time.
dude.
Enjoy your
See you
weekend.
soon. Bye.
Yeah, take care. Bye.